My name is Corinne Podger. I look after programs and development at the foundation, and my colleague Sian Gard is joining us. Sian will be managing the Solutions Journalism Fund. Sian, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, hi everyone. So Sian Gard, for the last 18 months or so, I've been managing the Meta Australian News Fund, which is a very similar grant process to the Solutions Journalism Fund. I've been working in the media for 25 years now, and spent a large majority of my career working for the ABC in the radio and broadcasting space, but done a whole heap of other things. Love stories, love editorial, and really excited about solutions journalism.
So the purpose of this webinar is to just go through the application process, so the application form, the kinds of documents that you'll need to upload, and just run you quickly through the templates that are sitting on the application form. We won't need the full hour, and once we've sort of gone through those sort of technical things, then we'll have a look at who's eligible, who's not eligible, what the funding is for, when will you know if you've gotten a grant, and what the acquittal process is. So what's the reporting back to the donor process? So let's get started. And like I say, Sian, can you keep an eye on the chat box?
Sure can.
Fantastic, because once I start sharing, I will lose sight of everything. So here we go, share screen, and we're going here. Okie doke. So the landing page for the Solutions Journalism Fund, hopefully you've seen it, and it looks like this. And you can click here to apply now. Just want to run you through a couple of quick things here. So it gives you an overview of the fund, the opening and closing dates. It talks you briefly through what solutions-focused journalism is, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. And then if you keep scrolling down, you'll see some resources to help you apply for grant funding. And again, we'll go through those in a moment. This is where we will, instead of you can register, attend our webinar later on today, that's where we will put the YouTube recording of this session. If we keep scrolling down, you can read a bit more about the program here. You can see that applicants can apply for a single amount of up to $30,000, and the minimum grant is $5,000. And the reason for this is that these can be individual stories or a larger project to introduce or launch a solutions journalism project. So that might be a podcast, it could be a web vertical, it could be content for a specific demographic in a format that suits that demographic, or it could be an investigative journalism project that requires travel, or it could just be an individual story. It has to, whatever form it takes, it must be completed and acquitted within 12 months of the funding being granted. And then we'll just go a little bit further down. Of course, there's the again, the information about the opening and closing dates. Please make sure that you have hit submit by this time. This is important. And then there's a link to the eligibility criteria, selection criteria, and terms and conditions. And we really want you to have read through those. So let's have a quick look at this. Okay, so it lists out, these are the sort of terms and conditions, the formal things, if you like. What is the entry period? So it opened last Tuesday, closes at 11:59 p.m. on the 12th of November. It talks a little bit about who is not eligible and who is eligible, and we'll come on to those points in the second half of this session when we do the sort of the logistics of this with Sian's inputs. But please just read through those. And this is really important. Funding is available for stories or new projects that are not already underway and have no other source of external funding. So if your project is already started, it's not a candidate for this fund. This fund is to support entirely new things. And then if you're applying as a news organisation as opposed to an individual, these are the requirements for you. You need to be an Australian-based media organisation with its primary business being the creation of news or informative content. You need to have demonstrated business operations for a minimum of 1 year prior to applying to the program. And there are some requirements within the application form that help you demonstrate that. have a minimum of 2 full-time staff or the equivalent, be publishing regularly, not have a content licensing agreement in place with Meta for Facebook news or video. You might have other funding arrangements, but this is really important. You can't have a content licensing agreement in place with Facebook. The last requirement is be able to contribute to a Meta case study and other marketing initiatives with Meta. If you're applying as an individual, as an organisation, the application should be made by the journalist who's most directly responsible for whoever will be looking after the project. So if you're going to be looking after the project, you fill in the application form. If you are a parent company, you can apply, but you do need to let us know that's the case, and there's a section of the application form for you to do that. And then if you've previously received funding from the Meta Australian News Fund, there's a short, about 100 words, just to demonstrate what was the impact of that previous funding that you have received. Now, if you're applying as an individual, so as a freelancer perhaps, or as a content creator, maybe you're a TikToker or a podcaster or a YouTuber, you need to be an independent journalist working primarily in Australia and be either an Australian citizen or permanent resident. Okay, so what you'll need to submit, a detailed project brief of up to 1,000 words, spend 700 words on your project, its overall aims and specific activities, how it meets the requirements of solutions-focused storytelling, and we have an online guide for that. We'll go into that in a moment. What the public interest need or rationale is for your story or project, and the target audience. So it's really giving the judges an idea of what is it that you're aiming to do with the funding. And then up to 300 words on where you will publish it, the distribution channels that you'll let people know that it's being done or happening, what the outcomes are and how you plan to measure those outcomes, and how you plan to use the funds to achieve those expected outcomes. That project brief will be the basis of decision-making for the judges. So just make sure that you've read all of this carefully. It should consist of non-confidential information that can be shared publicly by Meta and or the Walkley Foundation in the event of a grant application succeeding. So it won't be publicised beforehand, but it may be publicised afterwards. And if you want to include any confidential information in your brief, just make sure that you mark that clearly in your 1,000-word application. You'll also need to upload a detailed budget using a template supplied by the foundation, and there's a clickable link, and we'll go through that in a moment. You will also need a registered ABN, Australian Business Number, if you're applying as a business. If you're not, you don't need one. You need to tick a box to confirm that you're willing to comply with the MEAA Code of Ethics, and please click any live links that you see to make sure that you've familiarised yourself with them. And then you need to confirm that you're happy with that and any other requirements as indicated on the application form. There are some declarations at the end for you. Then for organisations, you'll need your most recent audited financial statement, the name of your parent application if applicable, and proof of consistent publishing over the last 12 months. And that can be examples of your work. For individual journalists only, if you're applying for more than $20,000, you may wish to submit audited accounts or a verified business plan signed off by an appropriately qualified referee. And we've got an example of that that you can download and fill in. And again, examples of at least 2 articles, programs or podcasts published in the last 12 months. Now, if you're an individual journalist planning to pitch your work, for example, to an existing platform, so perhaps you're a freelancer, you'll need a reference from an editor or publisher that includes a statement of intent to publish that work and a description of the applicant's suitability for funding and ability to deliver the proposed work. So a commitment to publish it and a reason why you should receive the funding. If you are a self-producing content maker, you'll need a letter of endorsement from an industry professional vouching for the applicant's skills to develop the proposed, to deliver the proposed project. And then lastly, all applications need to be in English. There cannot discriminate, and just please read through those requirements. Cannot include propaganda, cannot be editorially directed, so it really has to be editorially independent, and must disclose any previous meta funding. These are sort of our selection criteria. So the judges will be looking at these bullet points here when they assess your project brief, your budget, and your optional business plan. So how will the funds support solutions-focused journalism that's in the public interest? Whether you have provided a clear and compelling description of how the funds will be used for the intended purpose, the organisational need and the clarity of your budget proposal, the prior journalism practice, so the examples of your previous work, information about the impact of that previous work as provided in your application, the consideration of resources available to the applicant. So some of us have access to more resources, some will have less. And so the judges will take that into account. So if you're an independent freelancer, don't feel like you need to have at your disposal the same kinds of resources that would be available to a journalist working at a large broadcaster, for example. The judges will also think about how the project resources will achieve the outcomes that you're hoping. And again, it has to be for a piece of work or a project that's not already underway. Please also read through all of the terms and conditions. I won't go through them now. Excuse me. They're the sort of legal requirements. So just work your way through them before you begin your application form. Okay, so let's now have a look at what is solutions journalism. All right, I'm just going to pop up here. So we have some resources to help you with this. Earlier this year, we ran a solutions journalism training program, which consisted of 6 webinars looking at how to implement solutions journalism into your newsroom. I'm not expecting you to go back and watch all of that. What we did was condense all of that into a relatively short PDF. So I'll just make this a bit bigger so you can see it. There we go. And so it looks like this. And on page 4 of this document is a description of what solutions journalism is. So solution stories explain a response to a problem. So instead of leading with the problem, it leads with a response to that problem. So for example, rather than saying there's been another accident at the traffic black spot, there is an initiative underway to try and fix this traffic black spot, if that makes sense. And so it's leading with the response. So it has to be something people are already trying out, and your story has to explain what is it and how does it work. It has to provide evidence. So solution storytelling is not public relations or advocacy, and the way that it avoids doing that is by providing evidence. What is the efficacy of it? What's the effectiveness of it? And to provide data to support those sorts of claims by the people who are putting it into practice. It might be quantitative, so it might be facts and figures, or if you don't have that, anecdotal evidence, so qualitative evidence. So that might be people saying, yes, it's reduced the number of accidents in this area, or it might be a set of facts and figures that shows a sort of a numerical decline in the number of accidents at that previous black spot. It needs to offer what's called insights. Insights is where someone who's reading or watching or listening to the work could go, you know what, I now have enough information to see if I could try something similar where I live. I've got the same sort of problem. I'm going to give that a try. And part of that process of providing insights is to explain limitations. There's no such thing as a perfect solution or a silver bullet to any problem. And in fact, once we've reduced the number of accidents, perhaps at a traffic black spot, we still need to think what other improvements could be made in that location. There might still be some accidents. There's always room for improvement. Also, you may find that a response that works in one place won't work somewhere else. So a plastic recycling scheme in a large city may not work in a much smaller country town, for example. And so you need to include this in your story. What are the limitations of the response? And what are the unknowns? What don't we know? So those are the requirements of a solution story. So when you log in to AwardForce, you will be able to access the application form, which looks like this. Just move that out of the way. There we go. Excellent. So you'll start here. And you can see that we've put the links to the resources that we've talked about already at the top. So the main landing page, the eligibility page, and a link to implementing solutions journalism. Really strongly recommend reading through that PDF. It will really help you refine your idea for your story or your project. Okay, so down here we ask you to use the drop-down menu to choose whether you're applying as an individual on behalf of an organization. Okay, so for example, I can choose here and say, oh, no, I'm an organization. Nope, I'm an individual. So just make sure you choose that at the beginning. You can change it later. And you give your application a name. So I'm going to call this My Solutions Journalism Story. Please remember to click Save and Next as you go along. If you don't do this, it won't save. If you do this, it will save and you can come back and get back into it later on. So save and next. Now you can see here that it's given me a tab up here, which is individual journalist applicants. If I think, oh, actually, you know what? I'm actually applying on behalf of a newsroom, I can go back here and change it to organization, save and next. And it's going to give me a different tab up the top, organization. So let's work our way through it. I'm going to go through it quite quickly. So there we go. So my first name, my last name, trying to think of an email address, vicky.mouse@gmail.com. My house. So just put your postal address in here and which state you live. Now, has my story commenced already? If I answer yes, it's not eligible. So just think, nope, it's definitely a new project. I've never done it before. Our organisation it's new for us. No, it hasn't commenced already. Do you have a current content licensing agreement with Facebook? Sian, how would someone find out if they had a content licensing agreement?
It's a very easy thing to do. So if you're in a newsroom and you're, say, a journalist in the newsroom, you need to go and speak to your editor, or if you don't have a direct line to your editor, contact your general manager of the newspaper that you're with and ask them, or the publication that you're with, ask them if they have a content licensing agreement with Facebook. It's the easiest thing to do. And so places like The Australian has a content licensing agreement with Facebook. So if you were coming from the organisation The Australian, you wouldn't be able to apply for this particular grant.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. So having done one's research and to be sure, no content licensing. Now, have you or your organisation previously received funding from the Meta Australian News Fund? Those organisations are eligible. And again, Sian, how would one check that?
Well, if you, always check, refer up, as they say in the ABC. That's my ABC training, can't help it. But if you have done a project with us, you can also ring me and contact me if you're not too sure, if you're in an organisation for the first time. But if you have already received funds with the Meta News Fund previously, I can easily tell you, and you can contact me through the Walkley Foundation, only on Wednesdays and Fridays, thank you. Or you can go directly to your editor or your general manager. Yet again, they'll be able to share that information with you.
So assume then that you have received some funding. Down here, you would need to just briefly describe in 100 words or less, what was the impact of that funding? If you've not received any, then you can just tick no. Wherever it says optional, it means that the field doesn't have to be filled in. In some sections of the form, and we'll go through them, it's an either or thing, and that's why it looks like it's optional. But in this situation, because it's a no, it's optional. And so we just click Save and Next. All right, so now we have a biography section. So please include a 50-word bio written in the third person. We've allowed up to 300 words here because you might be a part of a team. And so 50-word bios for each member of your team. Obviously, once the grants are announced, if you need to change any of these, or let's say there are 6 people in your team, you can always send us an additional bio later on. So don't feel like this is the last chance. It's just I've included space there for 5. Those bios, just broadly speaking, will be used in marketing. So make sure that they are suitable for an external audience. So I will put bio goes here. It's not going to kick me out because I haven't put a minimum of 50 words. Okay, and then headshot. So a high resolution headshot in JPEG or PNG. Just keep in mind that a headshot is what it sounds like. It's a shot of you from your shoulders up to the top of your head with a little bit of space above. If you're part of a team, you can upload 1 headshot per member of your team. And if there are more than 4 of you, you can share more images with us before the outcome of the grant is announced. So if we let you know that you've received a grant and you want to change some of those images, it's absolutely fine. I've put in just a little bit of information about how to take a good quality headshot. I'm going to drag and drop it from here. There we go. Excellent. And then save and next. So I've ticked organisation applicants, right? Now, if I get to here and think, oh no, I am in fact an individual journalist, then I can go back to start here and change this to individual. Save and next. And it's going to keep the information I've put in so far, right? So let's go through, we'll do the individual one first, and then we'll come back and do the organizational one. So, and again, if you arrive here as an individual to think, oh, no, I'm an organization, you just do the same thing. Just go back to start here and change it. Okay, so I am an individual person. I mostly do print, Guardian Australia, because I need to be publishing mostly in Australia. I mostly cover lifestyle and special interest, and I'm mostly covering environmental news. Now here it looks like it's optional, and that's because I can drag a PDF or a file, like a video or an audio file, or I can share a URL. The total number of work examples is 2, right? So it might be a PDF and a URL. It might be 2 URLs. It might be 2 PDFs. If you are sharing a URL, it is your responsibility to make sure that any links you share are publicly accessible. The judges have to be able to open them. So if your work is behind a paywall, we recommend saving a copy and downloading it as a PDF if it's print, or a video or audio file. And then you can just upload it here, if that makes sense. Now, down here is please describe the reach and impact of the above 2 examples of your work. This responds to the selection criteria. So again, just go back and read those selection criteria and think, this is what's going to be used to judge my work, and then come back and fill this in. So reach and impact description. Now here, if you're applying as a freelancer, this is where you put the letter of intent to publish your finished work and why you're a suitable recipient of the funding. If you are a self-producing content maker, you come down to here instead, and this is where you upload the letter of endorsement from an industry professional vouching for your skills to deliver your proposed project. And again, that's why this is optional. If you're an individual, you need to do one or the other. The type of industry professional who could endorse your work, perhaps an executive producer, a social media lead at a news organization, a production company, someone that is of sufficient kudos and sort of professional strength to persuade the judges that, yes, you are the right person to fund for this project. Then a current CV goes up here. If you have an ABN, this is where you would put it. And if you have a Facebook page, then this is where you would put it. Now, if you don't have an ABN, just write not applicable. So I'm going to add my letter of intent here. And if all the way through the application form, if the form says, oh, that's not in the right format, or you haven't uploaded something, it won't let you save and move on. So I'm now ready to save and next. Okay, all applicants will need to fill in the project details and budget, but let's just go back to individual journalist applicants. Now, I did say that there are different things to fill in if you're an organisation. So let's bounce into organisation instead. And let's see what organisation applicants have to upload. So here, I need to complete this section. So company or business name, so my company. If you have a parent organisation, then you list it here. Your organisation website. Nope, I'm just going to grab a URL. Organization's business number. If you don't have one, you can type not applicable. But if you're an organization applying, you will certainly have one. So I'm just going to put in a number here, but please make sure that it is your ABN that goes there. The date of business name registration. So this is the date that you registered your business. It will default to today. So just make sure that you put when it was set up. It needs to have been in business for a certain amount of time according to the terms and conditions. So I'm just going to go back to, there we go. Date of business name registration. How many staff does my business have? I'll put 3. Now you can either upload the URL to your published charter of editorial or professional standards or similar document, or you can run it off as a PDF. So you can do either or here. So if your charter is not available online, print it off and put it up as a PDF in the next field below. As you can see, these are optional, but it's just because it's either or. Then you're asked to upload a PDF copy of your most recent financial report or other information showing your organization's financial performance. So here I'm going to drop in a PDF. Then it's asking me, what is my organization's ownership? Is community owned, family or independently owned, non-profit, subsidiary, or other? So I'm going to put other. What are the primary mediums or channels in which your organization publishes? So if I'm a large broadcaster, it might be those. If I'm a regional newspaper, it might be those. What is the total size of the audience across all media? So if I'm in a country town, it might be 40,000. And it's asking me to break this down by print, digital, and broadcast. So 40,000 print subscribers, 10,000 unique web visitors per month. That's per month, etc. And then describe your core audience with parameters other than size. So that might be where you would put they are, mostly, excuse me, mostly an older audience. It's mostly children. It's mostly people who perhaps, are middle class. Maybe it's people who speak a specific language group. So it might be that you're working with a migrant community and so on, just to help the judges understand who the target audience is for your media outlet. And then what's the following what if the following best describes your content focus? So if you're mostly general news, then you might put that. If you're special interest or other, then you might put, you might say what that is and then just specify what that is again. So there we are. And here we're asking, what percentage of your output would you estimate is public interest journalism? So public interest journalism, as opposed to any other form of journalism, such as entertainment and so on, it's asking you, what do you feel is the proportion of information that's in the public interest? And so it might be 60, for example. If you serve a traditionally underrepresented audience, so perhaps you serving an Indigenous audience, LGBTIQ+, community audience, a youth audience, rural, or perhaps a community that's affected by a specific natural disaster or local civic journalism, you might put yes here. If you're a general news outlet, then you might put no. Is it Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander led? So you tick one box only. And then here is where you are demonstrating not examples of your work, but proof that you've been publishing for more than 12 months. So again, you can either upload a PDF or you can put URLs. And then here you're asked, what is the reach and impact of the above two examples of your work? And if you have a Facebook page, you can put it there. All right, let's move on to what you need to upload for your project. So we've talked about this already. So this is where you put your project title. So My Solutions Journalism Project. Now this is where your 1,000 word brief goes. So remember, up to 700 words on the project and its overall aims and its why there is a need and who it's for. And then up to 300 words on where it will be published, how it will be distributed, your expected outcomes and how those will be measured, and how the funds will help you achieve that. So this is your project brief, and I'm just going to use the same PDF as before. What is the amount of funding? Now remember, you can apply for up to $30,000. So I'm going to put $25,000. And here you're asked, what are the following expenses? Which of the following expenses to relate to how you will use your funding? Now your budget will ask you to go into more detail on this, but I'm going to be hiring a part-timer to look after some of this. We're going to need some travel. We may need to invest in some equipment. We may need some non-staff operational expenses, and we may need to buy in some technology. Again, please refer to the requirements on what is and isn't fundable under this project before you fill in your budget. Now, then you're asked to fill in an Excel form, Excel sheet, sorry, with your budget. If you click this, it will auto-magically download to your computer. And once you open it, it looks like this. Sian, can you see that? Yep, great. So what this will download is a sample, and then your budget goes here. So the sample helps you understand what it might look like. And you can see down here, I'll just make this a little bit bigger. That's better. You can see down here when I click in this cell that up here it is going to magically calculate what these items add up to. So the total of those, oops, is $28,000. So if we go into your applicant budget, you would put your name, whether you're applying as an individual or organization, and how much you're applying for. And here, if you remember, we think, okay, I'll need $25,000 for this. So I'm going to hire a couple of freelancers for 6 months. We're going to need to do some travel. We're going to need, let's maybe make that a little bit less. And we're going to need some equipment. And down here, I'm going to need $2,000 in this. Now, one of the items here is project audit costs, which must not be left blank. Sian, what are project audit costs?
So basically, as part of your agreement with Meta and with us, I should say, the Solutions Journalism Fund, is that you tell us how you've spent the money. So the project audit costs is at the end of the 12-month period. You have to provide us with an audit, which is including an overall look at the financials of the business. So you have to go to a accredited accountant, and they will do an audit on your books. And that audit could be up to $2,000. It could be up to $3,000. And you have to get them to go through your books for the last 12 months in the project. So you have to have a separate bank account for everything. You'll have to have tax receipts for everything. Keep it all. They'll go through everything. They'll sign off on it to say that if you have received $22,000, every single cent of that $22,000 has been spent on the project in the way that you said you would spend it in the first instance.
Okay, wonderful. So what would you normally budget for that?
Look, it's between, there's probably a few people on this call that have probably a better idea what they've spent, but I would say between $2,000 and $3,000.
Okay, no problem. So I'm going to put $3,000 and there's my 25,000. Excellent. So that's my budget. Oh, sorry, you go ahead.
And just so you're aware, if you do underspend on a project, you have to return that underspend to the Walkley Foundation. And that's how we're able to provide this grant at the moment, because we've had underspends in our previous grants. So we've rolled that money into this grant.
Excellent. Terrific. So I've just filled in my budget. I'm now going to give it a name so that it's not just saying blank. And I'm going to drop that here. So you click it to download it, you fill it in, and then you upload it. Now, here it says, if you're requesting an amount over $20,000, you can upload a business plan signed off by an appropriately qualified referee. So that might be an accountant, or it might be, let's say you're working with a larger broadcaster, it might be your marketing division, or it might be your head of impact. It is optional. And if you don't upload a business plan, it won't affect your application, but sometimes it's just helpful. So I've put together a template for that. Which is just a very, you can find these all over the internet, just a basic business plan. But for the purposes of this project, you're not launching a whole business. Typically, you're launching a new project. If you're just doing a story, you won't be applying for this kind of level of funding. But if you're launching a new product like a podcast or a YouTube channel or a web vertical, you might want to do this. And to be honest, as well as helping the judges, it may also help you in terms of thinking, what are the overall goals of this and how am I going to achieve it? Keep it short, so no more than 5 pages. So business description, it says, what's the purpose of your business? How is your business structured? What is the product or service that the grant would fund? If you're going to charge for it, what would you charge for it? Who's it for? If it's location-based, where is that target market based and why have you chosen that location? And then the demand. Why will potential customers or buyers be interested in your product and or service? Who else is competing for this market and what would make your product or service and or service stand out? And then how are you going to let people know about it? If you're going to sell it, how will it be sold? And again, if you are going to sell it, what do you anticipate generating in revenue? Now, again, it's optional. You don't have to fill this in, but for larger amounts of money, it is helpful. And so I'm just going to drop this here. Please don't ask me for a PDF. Great, fantastic. It's happy with a Word document. Great. Now, here it's asked, would you or your organisation be open to partial funding if the grant can't provide the full amount requested? Sian, can you talk us through this?
Sure. So what happens sometimes when the judges do look at applications, and this has happened in previous judging rounds that I've been a part of with the Meta News Fund, is that the judges decide, looking through everyone's application, that say if you've asked for $30,000, but the judges have actually decided for various reasons that they only want to award you, say, $26,000. So you get awarded $26,000. If you're happy to accept $26,000, it still means that you need to fulfill the project with a given $26,000. You have to find the shortfall of $4,000. So if you receive partial funding, you may, or you're happy to receive partial funding. If you can't do the project without the full $30,000 and you don't want to find the money from elsewhere to make up that $4,000 shortfall, and then you get upset because you've only got $26,000, it's because that's the judge's decision and the judge's decision is final. If you do accept the grant, it means that you have to actually fulfill the grant and do the publication, the story, the project, whatever it is in that 12-month period. So that's what happens when partial funding is allocated out. And there's various reasons as to why the judges do that. It could be because we've received a lot of various applications. and they've decided that they've got to spread the money thin between lots of different organisations and individuals to make sure that everyone gets a fair slice of the pie, so to speak. Or it could be because that there's some elements of your grant application that actually doesn't sort of fit the criteria 110%, and they've decided that, instead of getting the $30,000, you can still do the project, but with $26,000. They won't fund that last $4,000 shortfall. So if you are not happy in not receiving the full amount, then please do not tick that you're happy to receive partial funding. Make that decision early. Don't get angry when I come to you and say, hey, guess what? I'm going to give you $26,000. And you say, but where's the rest of the cash? Because, yeah, it's just one of those things, and it's caught a few people up. So just be very aware of it.
Excellent. So I've asked for $25,000. There isn't any wriggle room in my budget where I work. And so I can't do it if I don't get the full amount. And so here I'm going to click no. But if I thought, you know what, we could repurpose, probably I could find 21,000, but I'm going to need the extra. So that the minimum I could get away with asking is this much, 21. I know I could find the additional 4. What is the intended commencement date? So, this is whenever you're planning to start it. And what is the expected finishing date? So let's go into 20. It has to be within 12 months. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. So can I just talk to that? So
yeah,
you'll know by the end of February whether you have received a grant. There's a bit of a process for us to get the money into your account at times, just to make sure that there's compliancy and a whole range of things. The judging process is quite a lot of work. And basically, once we have been in contact with you, or I have been in contact with you, and we've confirmed bank details left, right, and centre, the money will go into your account, and your commencement date in part of your acquittal process, you have 2 months to land your first acquittal report, which is a 60-day report, and it's very short and sharp. So it's very in, out, you've started the project and off you go. So you'll probably at this stage, by the end of February, you'll know if you've received the grant monies. So you'll be getting the money by probably the end of March.
Fantastic. Excellent. So I've just popped in here, starts on the 6th of April, aim to finish by, went way too far. Went too far. Oh no. Gosh, I can't believe next year's 2025. The year is just swinging by. Now, this last section here is risks. So there are, as we know, risks with any project or program. And so here it's really just asking, what are between 3 and 5 things that you're going to need to be on the outlook for? And what are sort of 1 or 2, 3, up to 3 things that you might do to manage those risks? It's helps you, I think, in the same way that the business plan helps you think, what is this thing going to look like when it's launched and running? And this statement here helps you think about, what would I do if something went a little bit pear-shaped? What would be my strategy for managing that? So risk management strategy.
Just on that, there are definitely things that hold up projects, as we've seen in the past. So being able to employ people with certain skill sets. There's been a huge problem with web developers over the last 12 months and accessing web developers. So just do keep that in mind. It's actually really important. And if you do want to apply for a grant and you are successful with the grant and you do start to have problems, all I can say is please reach out to me sooner rather than later, because if you come to me 6 months down the track and say, oh, we can't do this because we haven't been able to get X, Y, and Z, I can't help you. But if you come to me early and say, we're having issues, I can help.
Awesome. Okay, so save and next. And then we're into the straight. So down here is some declarations for folks to fill in. So the first one is a standard declaration for Walkley Foundation programs, scholarships and awards, which is to list any AI tools you've used to produce your application. So writing this application, for example, or to create the examples of work submitted in it. If you haven't used any, You can write none. So perhaps you might have used Otter for transcribing something in the examples of work. Just list them all here. Write down what are the tools and how have they been used. And you can see on the right-hand side what we're requiring from entrants. And again, this is for all of our programs. Just wanted to make a note here, where the foundation determines in its absolute discretion that the use of AI has rendered an application unsuitable for consideration, the foundation reserves the right to disqualify it and or revoke any grant given to the relevant entrants. So it's just better to be upfront about how you've used AI for any element of either the application form or the work that you're submitting as examples. Once you've listed this here, so I've just put one word, I might make this go into detail here, please. Then once you've written this, then you can tick this box. The next box down is by checking this box, you agree to abide by the MEAA Code of Ethics. By ticking this box, so here we see if your application is successful, this section will be used to measure the success of your project and be included in your acquittal reporting. So we may ask you to use this same platform for some of your reporting back. But more importantly, by ticking this box, you agree that you will provide an interim report of disbursements in 60 days of receiving funding. You will be required to attend regular meetings with our grant manager. These will be once or twice a month. That's with the wonderful Sian. And you will complete your acquittal within 12 months of receiving your funding. So as long as you're happy with these things, you can tick that. And then the last one is, I hereby declare that the information provided is true and correct. Once you've done all of that, important, submit application. And there it is. Hooray, and we're all done.
Just a quick note for everyone so you understand the judging process. So you put your application in, the applications close on the 12th of November. Once that happens, the judges are given access to the AwardForce platform and they go through the AwardForce platform and your applications individually. They then convene on a day later. They're given about 3 weeks to go through all of the applications and they decide as judges. We at the Walkley Foundation have absolutely no say in terms of who's selected or who is not selected and all that sort of stuff. They go through that and they make their decisions based on the projects, their viability, and also their experience within the solutions journalism space, as well as their experience in the journalism space. And they select who they want to give the grant money to and how much at the end of the day. And then after that's happened, our list of who the people are or who the organisations are, that then goes through a compliance process. So we go through and check to make sure that you're actually an Australian company, you actually have an Australian ABN, you know, where your company's background is, where your background is. So we check on that. Then it's checked off also by lots of different people left, right and centre. And once that's all given the tick of approval, that's when I get to go and I start making phone calls, which is the best part of the job, and saying, here, I'm going to give you $15,000. Here, I'm going to give you $5,000. So, and once that occurs, and as I said, there's a bit of a process backwards and forwards to make sure that the money goes into your bank account, because we do want to make sure that the money hits your bank account. If it goes into somebody else's bank account, it could be lost forever. So then that happens. It does take a bit of time. So it's not a quick and fast turnaround. There's lots of people involved to make sure that we're compliant, that we're doing the right thing as a not-for-profit, and making sure that we tick all the boxes at the end of the day. So if you can bear with us and you think that this kind of grant is something that is of interest to you and your project or your idea, then I highly recommend that you do apply.
Fantastic. We're really hoping to see lots of applications for this program. I think as Sian said, we're super excited about it. It's been really about a year in the making, and we're also thrilled at the size of the overall pot. So it's $175,000 overall. So get those applications happening, and we're here to help. Very happy to assist with anything as the questions come up. So please let us know. All right, I think that's pretty much it, and we've done a full hour. So Let's just check the chat box to see if there's.
Yep, there's a question from Jenny saying, are there
Mhm.
examples from previous rounds and ideally also the application docs available to look at? Jenny, not the application documentation, but in terms of examples from previous rounds. So the Solutions Journalism Grant is a new grant altogether, but in terms of who's applied for the Meta Australian News Fund, which is probably as close to this in terms of process as possible, you can look at some of the projects that have been put together online. They're all available on the Walkley Foundation website. You've just got to go into the About section and look through there and find the Meta Australian News Fund, and there's some examples in there.
Great. Excellent. Well, that seems to be it. Fantastic. Wonderful. All right. Well, thanks so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. And the recording will be up fairly shortly. We'll send a note to those of you who've registered for this humanities session, so that you know when it's online.